Well, Philip Larkin was a British poet laureate in the middle of the 20th century, and he grew up with quite a severe detachment from his parents, who were described in another poem as being very distant and very Victorian. So he grew up in the Edwardian age, and I think you'll have to look up when he was born, but his parents seemed old. There must have been either a significant age gap, or just their attitudes were very austere. So he was someone who was somewhat reclusive. He spent his life at Hull Library. He only published a few slim volumes of poetry, I believe, across the course of his life, but he was celebrated. He was the Poet Laureate, which is a ceremonial title given to the best poet. Um, this You'll know him from what is look it up. The famous line is, "They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do." It's a lovely poem. I'll post it in the link below. It's lovely, it's obviously confrontational, especially for the age. But this poem begins on longer evenings. On longer evenings, okay. Well, in Britain, as in Hong Kong, which has 4 seasons, we're just coming into our summer period now. That's why it's still nice and bright behind me, and why I thought I'd do this one at this moment. Light, chill, and yellow. Soft colours. Also soft emotions, right? So not very vivid, luxuriant, rich, strong, powerful, loving, emotional senses. But soft and gentle, and with some beauty. And these beautiful evenings, they bathe the serene foreheads of the houses. Quite unusual there, a little bit playful to use the enjambment to split up the phrase, the serene foreheads of the houses. Unusual, that, isn't it? It's not the faces but the foreheads. So that means it's just catching the top of the houses. So it gives you the sense that these are longer evenings, but still the shadows are cast because the sun is lower in the sky. But it sets a suburban scene, foreheads of houses, many houses, maybe a suburban terrace, something like this. A thrush sings. Well, it's that thrush again, isn't it? Stormcock in elder is also a thrush, and then a darkling thrush. So these are beautiful songbirds. There's some lovely bird song just in the background. You might be able to pick that up. But the thrush sings. Now, for Hardy, in the darkling thrush, it brings joy illimited. It's astonishing. For Ruth Pitter, it's almost a religious epiphany. It's a revelation. The thrush sings in the laurel surrounded. So the thrush that means it's surrounded by the laurel, which is kind of like creeping vine or weed, I think. It grows in the hedgerows, and thrushes, little medium-sized brown birds. They live in the hedgerows. So you can't see them, but the sound of the thrush is a sign of the coming of the spring. It is for Ruth Pitter. She calls him the old unfailing chorister, so marking the start of a new season. So there's some hope there. There's elements of hope. Yet this is in the deep, bare garden. Now this is where we start to move from the explicit realm of the adjectival descriptions to maybe something that's more of a subconscious or psychological space. The deep, bare garden. Is that the recesses of memory? Or is it simply because it's just after winter, so the trees are barren and bare, there's no berries, there's no plants growing, and so it's winter. So that lends a sense of the softness of the light, and because we know that the sunlight only bathed the foreheads of the houses. The garden is in darkness. But then its fresh-peeled voice astonishes the brickwork. It doesn't astonish the speaker though, does it? There's almost like a detachment here. It's the houses themselves that are serene, and it's the brickwork that's astonished, which is unusual. And then there's a pause. This movement towards spring and the signs, the symbols of spring that herald the coming, give the poet pause, give the speaker or the persona pause. And then there's a refrain, the repeated lines. It will be spring soon. Now, when I read that in the poem, I read the first one optimistically, because spring, to labour the point, is about regeneration and rebirth, new life, new hope, vitality. There's a comma. And we know a bit about Larkin. We don't need to know deep biographical details for these set text exams under time conditions, but it doesn't harm us to know something of Larkin's darker, brooding nature. And he comes back to this line, it will be spring soon. And I feel that that's more foreboding, more melancholy. It's flatter. And there's a pause there. It's casting him to think back to his childhood. And I hope that your memories of childhood would be things like Christmas and grandparents and playing, but it's not for everyone, right? He describes his childhood as a forgotten boredom. Feels like a child, but with none of those positive associations, like William Blake, Songs of Innocence, children closer to divinity and purity, or full of hope and playfulness. No. He feels like a child who comes on the scene of adult reconciling. So when he thinks about his childhood, when he thinks about spring, these associations taking back to a moment in memory where he walks upon adults reconciling. For a child, who would those adults be? Typically parents. But he describes them as adults. So yet again, there's this detachment, a lack of emotion, a lack of the ability to really feel warmth or feel the embrace or connection of being loved. This Be the Verse is that fantastic poem which I urge you to check out. The adult's reconciling, the child there, he can understand nothing but the unusual laughter. So it suggests that this is a house without much laughter, where quarrels take place. To reconcile is to make up. And that takes me back to the deep, bare garden. It's like this is a sort of psychoanalytically barren landscape, without joy, without hope, without happiness. But in this moment of laughter, and you could think about children, the peals of laughter, how wonderful and uplifting and joyous that is. He starts to be happy. And the poem finishes, starts to be, but does not become. And is it true happiness? No. It's an attempt towards happiness and laughter because of the intimation of some kind of reconciliation in this relationship between parents. But Yeah, it's not a reaction of spontaneous joy and belonging.